how it goes. Just to kind of give the kind of standard spiel for when we have done these student sessions every year. This is the Post Alumni Society, and I'm Tristan Rivera, the president. We're very happy to have everybody joining us here today. And we're going to be talking about internships, job interviews, writing resumes, kind of the whole process. We've got a lot of posties who are coming up on graduation now. And it's a great chance really to just kind of have some alums who can talk to us about kind of what their experience with working with interns, working with resumes, working with job interviews. I think a lot of students, with the feedback that we get is people want to know how to stand out, how to distinguish themselves and that kind of thing. So I will just kind of give both of you a chance for kind of a brief introduction, and then we can go from there. So let's start with that. We'll start with you, Lisa, as this is not your first time doing this one.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lisa Richwine. I live in Los Angeles. I work for Reuters news agency, and I cover the business of entertainment as well as some consumer entertainment news. I previously lived in DC for a long time and covered healthcare and the Food and Drug Administration and Congress and all of that. And as I said, I can speak from my experience just of working with interns and having had internships before, or anything about working in the newsroom. I'm happy to help.
Cool. And Doug, it's really nice to have you here. I think we haven't had you speak before.
No, I believe this is my first time. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Fruehling. I am, 1990. 1990 is when I graduated.
I wasn't going to say that, Doug.
Oh, you weren't? Oh.
I was 91.
Lisa was 10 years after me, so we never knew each other in school, no. Yeah, Lisa and I went to college together, though you were 1 year after me, right? Just the one. Yeah. Let's see, after college, I also went to DC for a year, and then I went to work for a daily in Peoria, Illinois, and spent 5 years there, and was able to go back to DC in 1996, working with the company I'm currently with, American City Business Journals. I began as the commercial real estate reporter for the Washington Business Journal, the job that Tristan now has, and I stayed there, became managing editor there, and eventually editor there. And 2.5 years ago, I moved to San Francisco to be editor of our newspaper here, the San Francisco Business Times.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're gonna, as I think I'd mentioned to you all before, we're gonna record the session here so that some of the students who can't make it tonight will also be able to watch. So to get started, we really wanted to kind of do a rundown, maybe some of the more popular kinds of questions that we get from students. And then maybe in the last 30 minutes or so, we'll kind of have an open kind of Q&A. So maybe to get started on maybe the first big question, and you can kick this one off, Lisa. I mean, talk about, your experience working with interns, some of the really important things for students to know kind of as they go into an internship.
Well, I would say it's going to depend on, the place you go and how involved they are with their interns. I think some places are really great and have programming for their interns and are really good about giving them assignments and keeping them busy, and others are not. And interns can just feel kind of lost in a newsroom. And so I would encourage people to, first of all, when you show up on day one and someone's going to show you around the newsroom, hopefully, and everyone's going to ask you what you're interested in. So have ideas ready of topics you're interested in. If you have time to even, learn about the city you're going to and knowing what some of the issues are, so you can bring it up and tell the relevant people right away. Let them know you're interested. And ask them to keep you in mind for any kind of help you can offer, if it's doing interviews, doing research, anything they need that can help. And you might have to keep bugging those people if you're not getting assignments. And keep in mind, everyone's busy. I know there are times we have interns and everybody wants to help them, but I'm at a wire service where everybody's on deadline. So, you're going to get some people who are just going to be like, I'm too busy to deal with the intern, frankly. So try to find the people who are happy to work with the interns and try to work with them. And, hopefully you have at least an internship coordinator that can help you, that you can touch base with and to say, look, I need more to do. Please use me in any way I can, and be open to anything. Any assignment they want. The news changes quickly. It might not be something you're really interested in, but it might turn out really interesting. So I would say be open to everything, but also don't be shy about saying, hey, I'm here to help. I think people welcome that, again, because we're all so busy.
Okay. And I'm definitely interested in both of y'all's perspective on this one. I think I found when I was my first internship, you have that struggle sometimes where, it's a busy day and it seems like the editor doesn't maybe have time to give you work. Or you kind of have that balance where, like, I don't want to be annoying my editor and like shooting them story ideas that aren't good story ideas. Like, talk about maybe as an intern, how you can kind of be a useful resource, even if maybe they're not giving you those story ideas.
Yeah. Do you want to jump in, Doug?
Yeah, I can address that. Very much along the lines of what Lisa was saying. I agree with everything she said. We are busy, and there's in our world, you sort of triage every minute of the day. What do I need to do right now that's most important? And honestly, maybe dealing with the intern is not most, and that's a bad phrase, dealing with the intern, but working with the intern is not the most important thing you need to do that minute, but it's important for an internship to be a good experience for the intern as well as the employer. And just like anything, both sides have to put something into it. And every company wants you there. We really do. And even if it seems we're busy and we don't have time to work with you, I think our company, particularly, Tristan, maybe you can back me up on this if you agree, is pretty good working with our interns. We hire a lot of interns out of for full-time jobs, and so I spend a lot of time training, working with, mentoring as much as you can mentor in an 8 or 10 week period, our interns. And I would say it's important for you to be persistent with that editor, but not persistent to the point where you are annoying. It's not unlike calling a source and trying to get a response. Whether you had to do that 1 time, 2 times, you're not going to do that 10 times. You just got to know where that right the right period for that is. You should come with ideas. You should read as much as you can. I'm rambling, Tristan. I think I forgot your original question.
Oh no, that's perfect. I mean, talking about how to find your own story ideas, how to hit the ground running when you're starting an internship and making a good impression.
Read as much as you can. Don't pitch a story without looking to see whether the organization has done the story recently. We all have Google. We can all do a quick, easy search. Every single newspaper has archives on the news site that you can find. Do your research. Find out if there's a new angle on a story. Nothing annoys me more than an intern or a reporter, for that matter, who doesn't do their research. That's one of the most important things in what we do, and to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Maybe Lisa, tell me about kind of your experience. Is there maybe an intern or a certain thing that an intern has done that really stuck out to you, like in a good way? Like, I mean, is it somebody that comes aboard with a big project in mind? Is it somebody that has a particular interest already to approach the internship themselves, like that kind of thing?
I would say, a big project, at least where I work, is going to be hard to do in a summer and get through our multi layers of editing. So I would probably cut your ambitions back a little bit on that. I'd probably just be overwhelmed if somebody came to me and wanted to do some big investigation on my beat. I would just say, that's going to be tough to do over a summer. I'm not thinking of anything specific in mind, but my advice would, a couple pieces of advice would be, I've had people asked to come shadow me at meetings. That was more in DC, going to FDA meetings, which are highly technical and totally boring, but I was, are part of the job, and I'm happy to take people along on those kind of things. I don't have that as much here, but just, I would say, ask how can I be helpful? I can, if somebody came and asked me that at any moment of the day, I could probably think of something for them to do, whether it's, calling this person to interview or looking up this fact or whatever, like that can go a long way. And I had a third thought that jumped out of my mind, but, and as far as the timing, like Doug was saying, like, also say, like, hey, is there a time we can talk? Can we have coffee at 2 p.m. or something? That I think helps a lot. Or, probably earlier in the day before the news breaks, or out here on the West Coast, actually, we get quieter later in the day, but, setting up a specific time, maybe over coffee to chat if you're really, not getting a response from somebody, or, just getting a brush off all the time that I'm busy. And I don't mean to sound like this is going to happen all the time, because I think a lot of places will give, we'll give assignments, and, do want to make sure people have a good experience. And this is, possibly your foot in the door to a future job. So they really want to see what you have to offer and give you a chance to show what that is. And I could say I cover entertainment, and a lot of what younger people offer is they know what's going on TikTok and everything that I do not know. And that doesn't just apply to entertainment, there was a story this week that the Biden administration is briefing TikTokers on Ukraine. So, like, things like that you guys can see that that I'm not going to see, and a lot of older people aren't going to see, I think is a huge advantage, in one place to look for idea, not TikTok, whatever is beyond TikTok that I don't even know about yet.
Lisa, you're still on MySpace, right?
Possibly.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. That was actually something I was kind of curious about. Abby has mentioned to us, the editor-in-chief, that the Post has a pretty active TikTok following, and that a lot of students these days, they're interested in kind of learning some news from it. Like, I think even like me, I'm a 33-year-old, and I think I aged out of TikTok, I'm sorry to say, and I'm like kind of lost on it. I mean, talk about kind of that process of, as an intern, maybe explaining or selling some of these things that maybe your boss might not know about, that might be a good source for story ideas or something like that. I mean, even talking about maybe when it's in your first job and you're bringing a new skill set that maybe another generation isn't familiar with.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Don't come up to us and say, so there's this thing called TikTok, and no, don't make us feel old.
That's true.
We've had a lot of interns who bring a certain idea of something that they have a personal interest of theirs that they want to do a story on, and we'll let them pursue those. What's very important for us for business publication is getting the story through the proper lens, which is the lens that our reader cares about, the business lens, what it means for them and their business. Every publication has a readership lens. What Lisa does is entirely different. It's an international news site that has correspondents all over the world and has readers all over the world. We are in 40 cities, and we have readers mostly in those 40 cities. So you've got to know what your audience is when you pitch something. And so again, Tristan, what were you asking in terms of
maybe
pitching
bringing something that maybe is that maybe your editor isn't familiar with, but that you might find to have like a newsworthiness. And I think particularly, like I mentioned, there's a lot of things. TikTok is a good example of just how much the way that people get their news is changing. And those of us who are in the business who aren't in school really benefit from having, interns and people fresh out of college giving us some, kind of teaching us some of that stuff.
There's nothing wrong with pitching an idea like that, as long as you pitch it through what the publication's audience would be, and do it in a sophisticated way. And so think through that, do your research, formulate your premise and your nut graph as need be, and explain why our readers need to know the story that you're pitching. And you should be able to do that. If you can't do that, it's probably not a story.
Okay. Maybe let's fast forward a little bit and talk about when you're applying for that first job. Talk about some of the advice that you might have, especially when it comes to making sure your resume gets noticed, finding your way to the top of the pile, really standing out in the resume and the interviewing process.
I can take that one. I wish I had, a magic wand to tell everybody to do exactly this, this, and this, but I don't. And every editor is going to be different. And I personally was someone who looked at resumes, and cover letters were secondary to me. But I will say that with a caveat: we get a ton of resumes today that do not have cover letters, and I don't know whether that's a result of being able to go onto LinkedIn and just hit one button and apply for a job, or even a lot of sites themselves, you can apply through that website. It's really, really annoying to me that you would apply for a writing job and not send a cover letter, especially when we have my recent ads, I've begun to put in bold letters, all caps, applications without cover letters will not be considered. And you still get more than half without cover letters, which to me tells me that person doesn't really want the job. They're blanketing their resume and just hitting submit application on LinkedIn, I guess. And that's not the way to look for a job. You should want to work for the organization that you're applying to. And you should have a reason that you want to work there. It should be not just a job. I'm not looking for someone who just wants to earn a paycheck. I'm looking for someone who really wants to excel as a local business journalist. So that's the one thing. I'll always have a cover letter, and it's no different than a story. In fact, a resume and a cover letter should be very similar to a story. It should be full of specifics. Just don't say you write a lot of stories a week. Say how many stories you write a week. Say what stories you've broken. Every single editor wants to know what story you have broken, what scoops you had, if that's in the last year, that's in your last internship. Highlight 2 or 3. Highlight a story that, you did come up with the concept for, and you took to your editor, and he or she said, go ahead and do it. So be specific on your resume. Where was I going with the other? In your cover letter, don't say you're passionate for journalism. Please, please, please don't say you're passionate for journalism, or you're excited to work at insert company name here. We see through that. You better be excited if you're applying for a job here. You better be passionate about journalism. Those are given. Don't tell me that. Tell me something about yourself. Show me how you can write. I mean, that's the most important thing. It could be a story about anything. You can break free from the traditional cover letter mold of outlining your history or anything, and just say, my resume has my work history. I would like to tell you a little about myself. Here's something that happened to me when I was whatever, or this is how I broke the biggest story of my life, or this is how I dealt with the biggest mistake of my life. Anything like that humanizes you and shows that you can write. Let's see what else. Ooh, resumes. There's nothing wrong with selling yourself. If you there's nothing wrong with selling yourself if you don't oversell yourself and you're being truthful about it. Don't exaggerate where you shouldn't exaggerate. but, say that you broke a story. Say that you led your company in page views or visits to your company, or we have a thing here at the Business Journal, it's called conversions, which is when someone hits our paywall and they can't read a story and they take out their credit card to read the story. So one of the metrics that we use is conversions. Say you led the company in conversions. That, we share all that information with our staff. So it's available and it's not proprietary enough that you could include in a cover letter or a resume.
Yeah. I'll expound on that a little bit since I'm also in the same system than at the Business Journals. We quit focusing on page views. We started focusing on this conversions metric, which is, if anything, I think it's a good thing because it says, hey, we have what you're writing is important enough that people are hitting the paywall and saying, okay, well, we're going to subscribe. This is worth paying for it. And yeah, it's interesting how that was even something that wasn't really what we were focusing on 5 years ago. It's just an example of, the way that you can sell yourself in a job interview shows a lot. Maybe talk about that. Yes,
it may not be what we're focusing on in 5 years.
Yeah,
the way things are changing.
It's true. Talk about
and I would just say, since I work at Reuters, if you're applying to a place like Reuters, or this might be relevant, emphasize any languages you speak, or especially, if you specialized in Russian studies in school, or you spent a semester abroad, like anything like that helps you stand out a little bit above people who haven't done that. So that's a leg up for sure.
And one other thing I was going to say earlier, back to internships, is you should use your internships as a way to gauge your interest in something. We hire a lot of interns who have never covered business and who come here and love covering business, and they get that experience. But you also may find out, I just didn't care for it. I didn't care for asking people how much money they made. I didn't care for numbers. Obviously numbers, money, follow the money is a big thing. So, there's nothing wrong with doing a couple internships to see what really interests you and where you might land. I never did a business internship in college, and I didn't have any expectation that I would become a business journalist. But my first job, I started covering development, and it led me to the Business Journal, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I avoided every business class I could at Scripps, and here I am 9 years in. I know that.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Maybe talk about maybe some of the mentor relationships. One of the things that really helped me when I was in school was that I had a relationship with a professor. We kept in touch, and I had somebody kind of advocating for me and sending my resume out and about. Talk about maybe some of the relationships maybe that students should work to kind of preserve and build from an internship, from school, that kind of thing that maybe will help them down the road.
Lisa, you want to take that?
Well, I would just say don't, and I probably made this mistake when I was younger, but don't be shy about keeping in touch after your internship, sending emails to key editors or even just colleagues saying, here's what I've been doing since, and I'm looking around or whatever. Just don't be shy, just do it. But yeah, I would say, develop a good relationship with, whatever editor is managing you, whoever does the hiring. In our case, we have bureaus around the world. If you want to, if there's a city you want to work in, ask to be connected by that person. At our company, people are very open to meeting people from other bureaus virtually, as we all do now. Yeah, I guess that's the best advice I can give. Like, I don't mind getting those emails at all. I would say don't be calling all the time saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, and but I think regular email updates are good after you're done.
Not be too annoying though. Tell me about maybe moving on there, kind of the interviewing process. Maybe one of the best pieces of advice that I got was that by the time you're in for a job interview, you don't really need to sell your credentials so much because they already have your resume, and that the interview is a little bit more about just getting to know you as a person and how you fit in the organization. That put me at ease a lot when I was doing more job interviews later on in my career. Talk about advice you have for approaching the job interview process and how to stand out there without, I'm sure it's kind of nerve-wracking to go in.
So, the most important thing I look for in an actual job interview, and I've hired now 3 or 4 people during the pandemic without meeting them in person, which is a whole nother issue. But you have to do what you have to do. But I look for a good rapport with the candidate. Between the candidate and myself and other editors, I want there to be a good fit. I want us to get along. I want there to be some signs of some chemistry, some personality traits. I mean, I'm a big person in, and I've heard, I did not come up with this phrase, but someone used it, and I liked it. We don't hire assholes. So if I can weed out the assholes in that in-person interview, that's what I want to do. And so I want someone to come in professionally. Doesn't mean you have to wear a tie. I mean, 20 years ago, sorry, my phone's going off the hook here. And I've evolved in my own thinking on that. If you came in and were not wearing a tie at a job interview and a coat, if you're a man, 20 years ago, I would have been less inclined to hire you. And today that's not the case. I understand that times change, and especially now in the pandemic situation we're in. What I'm really looking for is, again, that chemistry, that rapport, the ability for you to sit down with a stranger and interview them, or meet with them or converse with them, any of those things. If you can't do that with me, you're not going to be able to do that with the CEO. And when you're working for a business journal, you're going to have to go out and interview CEOs on a weekly basis, CFOs on a weekly basis, entrepreneurs, founders. If you can't do that with me, if sitting across from me makes you too nervous, I know you're not going to be able to do that during an interview. Do your research. Again, it goes back to research. You got to know something about the company you're applying to. And I've been around for a while, and I can tell if you haven't done your research. So read up as much as you can. Read up about me. There's 20, 30 years of Google information on Doug Fruehling out there. So anybody can go on to
Or
Google.
call me, I'll tell you about
that. That's the information that's not publicly available. Okay, you made me lose my train of thought there.
Sorry, you were making good points about being prepared, and I would add, if you apply to Reuters, know how to pronounce Reuters, because lots of people say Reuters. That is not right. Even when I say to them, I'm Lisa from Reuters, and they say, oh, Reuters. No.
That's fantastic. I love that. We get a lot of well, I love your magazine. And I know the lines are blurring with everything now, but if you absolutely know anything about business journals, we are not magazines. And so that just tells me you've never even seen a hard copy. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen a hard copy and you want to work here, you're not doing your job. And you're going to apply that same practice to when you're researching for a story, and in a bad way. Yeah. So yeah, be yourself. One thing that when I've mentored people in terms of going on stage or moderating panels or serving on panels, I always tell them, be yourself. If you're really sarcastic, you can be sarcastic on a panel in a professional way. If you like one-liners, if you're witty, whatever, be yourself, just so long as you're bringing the goods in the information that you're there to impart. same as an interview. I
Mhm.
don't want, a staid person sitting there at the desk giving me monotone answers about how passionate they are in journalism.
Mhm.
I can see through that. So be yourself. I know that's pretty obvious, but you wouldn't believe how many people come and sit across from me from interviews and don't do that.
Yeah, I get you. We will open it up to questions after I do one last one that I want both of your perspectives on. Lisa, talk about what kind of trends you see coming down the pipeline that you guys are leaning into right now at Reuters, that maybe students who are in school right now should kind of prepare for, or now they have the opportunity to learn about things. What are some of the things that they really want to know about when they're trying to come into your organization?
You mean you mean story topics or trends in storytelling?
Everything from skill sets in the business to new technology
sets.
tools to kind of what kinds of stories you all are looking for, job skills.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, sure. We're all told we're multimedia journalists now, which means different things, I think, to different people. There are some, I think in the TV world, they call them MMJs, and they're really multimedia, and they do everything from beginning to end. What I do as a multimedia journalist, I just did this on a story where I had to take all the video and shoot all the photos and do all the interviews and write the story. And I send the video and pictures to somebody who puts it all together. A true multimedia journalist, I think, does all the editing of the video and all that. I don't know how to do that, but since we all have iPhones now that take great photos and videos, we're expected to do that. We still have big TV crews that come along sometimes, but if not, we are expected to know how to take pictures and shoot video. So certainly, yeah, and if you have examples of that, I would submit that. Again, we're all exploring social media, and you guys probably know more than we. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and all that. I don't think Reuters is on TikTok, but I'm guessing we're experimenting there. But if you have ideas like that, I think people would be open to hearing that. Also new storytelling formats, which you have probably experimented with at the Post more than my company has. We all understand, and there's horrible statistics that like our average reader spends like 8 seconds on our story or something very depressing when you've like spent all this time on it. But we're trying to figure out new formats to get information to people, with shorter attention spans, and tell them what they need to know, and not in the traditional, we still do traditional investigations and 3,000 word stories, but we know that a lot of our news has to come in more digestible ways. And again, if you have examples of that, I think that what I'll call our legacy media, is happy to hear it, and help kick off some innovation in some of these newsrooms.
What about you, Doug? What's going down the pike at ACBJ that I'm going to find out about next year?
Well, I was going to mention alternative story forms as well. And I don't think that ACBJ does those particularly well. That's our company here. But everyone thinks, oh, I've got to go interview 3 people and write a 1,000-word story. And there's so much more you can do with that. And half the time I don't want to read that 1,000-word story. And if you can come up with a creative way to tell that story without writing 1,000 words, be it a gallery, be it charts. We did a cover story at the WBJ, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the Greater Washington economy and 5 charts. And we actually made it a cover story. And there were no words. It was just explaining the economy through these charts. And if you can come up with ways to do that and talk to your editor about it, the editor may have an idea, but you may have an idea, or maybe the 2 minds come together and say, hey, this would be really cool if we did this, let's see, what else? I would say that our company, like I mentioned before, has never been at the leading edge of journalistic trends. We're always more a trailing indicator, if you will, lagging indicator, but we're consistent. We get things done, and I wish Tristan, I don't know if you agree with this. I wish we could try a little more. We're sort of constrained by our own digital platform, which connects all of our newspapers together. And so we can try things in print, but we can't try a lot in digital unless the tools are given to us, and that's a little frustrating. But I would read, if you guys read the New York Times and see some of the digital work that they're doing, it's amazing how they'll tell a story through a combination of like a blog and a moving graphic and a voiceover, and you'll just learn so much, in such a quick amount of time. Some of the stuff they did with Surfside with the condo collapse was amazing. Things like that, telling stories that way. I guess that's it. Yeah. Not a great prognosticator.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that. Before I was here, I was at Columbus Business First, and we had a postee who was an intern for us at one point, Logan Moore. And sure enough, you come to the papers that we write at the business journals, and you have this sense that we just write for CEOs, and maybe it's kind of boring and dry. But one of the things they really care about is what are young people, up and coming young professionals, caring about these days, what's important to them, and that sort of thing. And Logan found a good niche, kind of finding stories that sold to the CEO why they should care about their new hires and what their new hires were caring about, and that kind of thing. And that was a good way to find to kind of use your own voice to tell a story that maybe the paper isn't noticing that it's not telling. So I think beyond that, now we'll see if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask the panel. Abby, I can kick it to you here. Generally, if there's anything that you might have heard from the students, just generally about anything on the topic of internships, resume building, interview skills, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for talking to us tonight. I know there are a few posties who asked me about the recording. So thanks for recording. I'm sure we're going to have some people look at this, which is great. I think one thing that I hear from some posties when we're talking about applying for internships in the newsroom is really how you kind of select the sort of clips that you want to submit. If it's, for example, a breaking news internship, do you still submit a feature to show your versatility as a writer, stuff like that? So I'm just kind of curious, what do you look for in clips from students? And I guess what is kind of the breadth of what they should include in their clips?
Well, it's got to be more than a basic press release rewrite, let's say. You have to be able to do that, and you don't need to show me that in a clip. If I can't tell that you can't do that by the time you're sitting in a chair across from me, that's my fault. It's got to show some creativity of people. It's got to have people in it. It's got to have good quotes, and not long quotes that should be paraphrased, but good quotes. Show me that you're a good interviewer. Show me that you have a good ear for a quote. Show me that you can paint a picture. In terms of whether you need to customize what you're sending, my opinion personally, I'm not speaking for all editors. Again, like I said at the beginning, you may ask 10 editors and get a different answer on this. I'm looking for something that shows creativity, initiative, clean writing and organization, a great lead, good use of quotes, things like that. It doesn't have to be on the subject matter of business. Now, if I'm hiring for a real estate reporter, would I like to have some indication that you know something about real estate? Yes, but in terms of general internships and general entry-level reporting jobs, I'm more interested to know that you can report and write And I can train you a lot of the other stuff that comes with that that's related to a specific beat or related to what the business journals do versus what Reuters does versus what a daily local newspaper does versus what a blog does, things like that.
Abby, anything else that you've heard from the students as far as questions?
This is more of a personal one than something I've heard from other students, and you kind of touched on it in your last question, Tristan, but I was just curious, looking at like a resume, what sort of like skills or maybe even experiences should students highlight to really like set them apart from others?
Oh, that's a good one. If you do have a skill that pertains to the beat, certainly emphasize that. If I'm hiring a retail reporter and you have some retail experience, you know, you can put on your resume all the apps and all the programs and everything you know, and the computer languages you write. You know, I'm not really going to look at that. I'm just not. It's not. Everyone these days needs to be able to know their way around an Excel spreadsheet. So you don't need to highlight that for me. Everyone needs, as Lisa said, everyone needs to be able to take video and photos composed well and clear and in focus. So you don't need to highlight that. This is going to sound awful. I really don't care about what your community involvement is in. Maybe another editor would, and I think it's important for everybody to have community involvement. That's just not what I'm hiring you about. And so I don't need to see that. You know, you can put it on there. Sometimes it's a conversation point in an interview. I might see it and I say, oh, here, well, Tristan, you mentioned marathons. I was a coach. Lisa may remember this. Remember the AIDS marathon 20 years ago, Lisa? And I was a coach for that. And I did have that on my resume 20 years ago because some of the skills that came with that, and that was community volunteerism type stuff. But, you know, it's just not really anything that I look for these days as needed to be on a resume. As something that I look for and that I'm going to ask you about on a resume. You can list your organizations. But, you know, it's not going to surprise me if any buddy whose resume comes into me is a member of SBA, Society of Professional Journalists, or, you know, any other journalist organization. So I'm not going to say, oh, wow, they're a member of SBJ. I'm going to, let's call them, you know. You can list awards, but I'd prefer the fact that I'd prefer you tell me not that you won an award for this story, but what this story was, where it came from, and why it kicked ass. Simple as that, you know. The award is sort of an asterisk, and that's great, but tell me about the story. Tell me where the idea came from, how you persevered to get it, things like that, because that's what you're going to be doing every single day when you're working at a newspaper or a news organization. And I'm looking for someone who can do that and can show me they can do that or has the ability to grow into doing that.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, I feel like when we were applying for jobs, Doug, like, you know, showing a really well-written breaking news story was a great skill to have. And I mean, now that, you know, what's valued are distinctive stories. Show me that you had a unique angle on this story that a lot of other people were writing about, or uncovered something about, you know, Athens that nobody else knew about. That's going to be way more valued. That, I mean, I guess if you're applying specifically for some kind of job that's only breaking news, you would do that. But basically, you know, my bosses think that sadly, pretty much anybody can do that. So that's not as impressive.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right.
I'll just throw something out for you guys just because I'm really curious. I feel like we hear a lot right now about kind of how it's a seller's market, so to speak, in terms of job applicants, that there are more people that want to hire applicants than there are people actually looking. And I'm not in journalism directly anymore. I would imagine that it's a little bit different than kind of the world I'm in right now. But is it like that for internships too? Are you guys feeling like there's more desire for interns than there is actually interns to be had? Or do you feel like it's still kind of the opposite, where students really need the internships and kind of the demand, so to speak, is kind of more of that traditional? Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because I feel like we all hear stories about, you know, recent college grads who have so much more of an opportunity than someone who graduated like me in 2009 or 2008. Like, it's just such a different landscape than when we were out there. So I guess I was just curious of what you guys are seeing and hearing about that.
There's there's always going to be this inclination to hire cheaply. Any
Yeah.
news organization is going to want to do that in some respect, and that's not always the best thing to do, obviously. That you sometimes you do want to pay for skills and experience, and that's important. We actually lost our intern program here the last 3 years. Ever since I came to San Francisco, we haven't had an intern, and we just were able to get one for this summer. So I don't know what the intern market so much is like, but I think it's probably, and I will tell you, the job market for me in the Bay Area, I used to be able to post a job and I might get 50 resumes, and 10 of those might warrant a second look, and 5 of those might warrant a phone call. And now I get 10 resumes, and 1 of those might be worth talking to. So the job market for us here in the Bay Area is just topsy-turvy, where we can't get people to work in journalism here. And I'm not sure what the intern market is. Maybe Lisa, you have more, a better read on that?
I don't think so. We haven't had interns in a while in LA either. I mean, Reuters does have a pretty robust internship in many cities. It's all run out of New York, and it often leads to a trainee program after that. But no, I'm just thinking about, I would love to have an intern. You know, I know that we were at the beginning talking about how, you know, you don't want to be a pest, and that, you know, some staff would, you know, are too busy and, you know, don't want to take the time to work with interns. But God, I would love to have an intern again this summer. It'd be great. We could definitely find work for them to do. So, you know, maybe that'll change. But you know, I think it's definitely an important thing to experience, to have as a student, mostly to build those, I mean, not mostly, but partly so you have those contacts when you're looking for a job. It's just like a huge leg up to already know those people.
Do we have any seniors on the call,
Yeah, I'm a senior.
Abby? I was just going to take a moment to pitch our company. I don't know whether Tristan's shared much about American City Business Journals, but we are a group of weekly print papers and daily online coverage, local business. And the cool thing about us is we're in 44 cities across the US. So I don't know whether many of you are from Ohio or whether you're from all over the country, but there's always a business journal nearby. And it's a really great company. And if you haven't investigated it for an internship or a job, you should reach out to me, or Tristan certainly can help as well. We have 2 national internship programs. One is affiliated with the Dow Jones program. And I think we hire 10 to 12 of those a year. Tristan, does that sound right?
Yep.
And then this year we did, we have another corporate program where we hire 10 to 12 to 15, depending on how much money there is. And we place them in papers all across the country. And an ACBJ internship is a really good internship because you will get bylines, which is ultimately what you want. You want to be able to go, not do that breaking news story, but do a really good story that you can use as a clip. Like I said, we also do hire a lot of interns. So reach out to me if you want any more information.
Yeah, for sure. They hired me in Dayton, and then 4 years later they moved me to Columbus, and now I'm in Washington.
And he's one of our stars. And that's the other cool thing is, you know, if you have a spouse or somebody move, you can apply for relocation to one of our other cities, which is very cool. And you can't always do that if you're working, let's say, for a large daily. You know, you're sort of stuck with that daily. So that's a cool thing to have. And business journalism is not boring. It shouldn't be, and we don't want it to be. We want it to be fascinating, and we want to write about people and concepts and money and things like that. It's fascinating. And what's cool about what we do, not to, you know, say that Lisa's job is not interesting, because I know it's very interesting, but you know, we actually write about the local communities that we're in, that we live in, that we you know, shop in, that all of our friends live in. And that's a really cool element of the kind of journalism we do.
No, and I was just going to add, use your Bobcat connections, get on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to help another Bobcat. So, you know, and we're all over.
Yeah, surprising. Abby, anything else?
I don't think so, but thank you all again. And I'll be sure to let other seniors and posties know that they can reach out with any questions.
All right. Well, folks, thanks again for your time. We'll be back next week with a state of FOIA and how to go about doing one of those. Thanks again for your time, Lisa. Thanks again for your time, Doug. Really appreciate you being frank with us and everything. So,
no problem. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Good night, guys.
Yeah,
Say hi to Athens for us.
Yeah.
Will do. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.